We need to have a conversation about work. Conversations about work in the political sphere have splintered off into two camps, one being the anti-work Redditor type and the Mike Rowe corporate simp type. I had intended to make a video about Mike Rowe a few months ago, but I never got around to it. So this will be my attempt to make one. In my last video, I discussed how America is a completely different country than it was when we were kids, and I could probably spend the rest of my life examining how every little aspect has been changed. Of course, Mike Rowe represents the attitudes of men from back in the day, when the system was completely different and the incentive structures were as well. And on many things, I do agree with him. But you cannot have the attitude that America is broken and somehow gloss over work as well, as if it's not broken, because everything is broken, including work. If you want to know exactly how work is broken, as well as my feelings about it, I'd encourage you to watch a couple Keith Woods videos about work. He summarizes my feelings on it in a much better way than I ever could, so rather than rewrite it, I'll just reference you to those videos, and I'll have them linked below. I did bring up Mike in my last video, and it's not only that he simps for big corporations, but he's living in a fantasy land about how jobs function and how the workplace actually is. It was not always a fantasy, though. It used to be true. But since America is dead, his analysis is worthless, and as such, he can now only be a useful idiot to the employers who continually screw us over. So in this video, I'd like to go through one of his appearances on Fox News, and I'll pause and provide some commentary throughout.
I don't understand the younger generation. They don't seem to want to work.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you think
I couldn't wait to work. Work for me. I started working as soon as I was able to because that's how I could get money to spend things I wanted.
I mean, do you think they don't want to work because they don't have to, whether it's their parents or government kind of feathering them out?
And that is more from John Mackey just talking about he's just exasperated. He doesn't figure where the work ethic went because we don't know how we got it. But to me, I remember getting my papers thinking 12, 13, one more year, I can officially work. Mike Rowe here talking about his series is back on Monday nights. So, Mike, what is your take on what John Mackey is asking the question, not rhetorically, he wants an answer. What happened?
Well, we have associated drudgery with work, all work.
It's not fulfilling.
We've made work the proximate cause of our collective unhappiness. We believe today that job satisfaction has something to do with the job, and it really doesn't. If it weren't that case, well, guys like Booker T. Washington wouldn't have written what they wrote. If it were the case that job satisfaction is all about the job, then all garbage men would be equally miserable. All Wall Street types would be equally optimistic. It's laughable. All talk show hosts would be equally engaged. You know, job satisfaction has something to do with the job, but a whole lot more to do with the person. And if you start to look at work like this thing, that's separate and apart from the man or the woman, then you sort of arbitrage the fun out of it, and you just reduce it to action and activity. Why do you think this whole working from home thing is so sensitive right now? It's so fraught, right? Because a lot of people who really favor it, I think, feel as though, okay, finally, now I'm in control. Now I have a measure of control that I didn't have over what I wear or how I sit or how long my break is or so forth and so on.
So what's missing?
He immediately craps on his own point by saying that you bring the happiness to work with you, and the job that you do is irrelevant. And then he follows that up by saying that people are refusing to give up work from home because they're happier than they were when they were working from the office and all the terrible things that go with it. Well, which is it? Do you bring happiness to the workplace, or does the workplace impact your happiness? It's such an obvious answer that it's almost insane to think about it. Mike Rowe and his show Dirty Jobs is like being a grandparent. You get to see the baby, you get to appreciate the baby, you get to hang out with the baby for a day. You might have to change a dirty diaper or two, but at the end of the day, as the grandparent, you get to hand the kid back to their parents and you don't have to live full-time with the responsibility of that baby. Going to a chicken farm for a day for your massively successful TV show, while fun, is not the same as working at that chicken farm for $8 an hour for years on end. How would that job affect Mike Rowe's happiness if he worked there every day for a year?
So it sounds good. I control when I'm working. I control what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I decide what I can wear.
Yep.
I make my house an office.
Yep. It all tracks right up to the point where you're not an entrepreneur.
And there it is, the only card the corporate simp ever has. If you don't like the deal that corporations offer you, then why don't you go start your own business? Now, this ignores the fact that the vast majority of people are sheep, and they are not entrepreneurs, and logistically it would be impossible. Imagine a US where 250 million people all had their own business, all competing with each other for that business. It would be a nightmare. We do need corporations and big businesses to employ most people. That's all right. But the deals that they're offering and how the workdays go with these corporate jobs are flawed, which we'll get to in a bit.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to assume the risk that comes with creating a business, if you want to set your own hours, that's all well and good. But if you're going to accept a paycheck, then you've made it a bargain. You've made a different kind of deal with yourself and with your employer. You know, you don't have to stick with that deal for the rest of your life, but you've made that deal.
Mike Rowe, I want you to hear this. I think is it from TikTok? Was I right? This is from TikTok. This is a 20-something talking about this new term, quietly quitting.
I'm hearing people talk about the term quiet quitting. What that means is people are not going above and beyond anymore. They're not chasing hustle culture at work. They're just doing the required minimum. Essentially, they're doing what they're getting paid to do. Why does quiet quitting have such a negative connotation, though? Sure sounds a lot to me like creating work-life balance for yourself.
Look, a C+, a C, you know, it's a passing grade, right? I mean, if you work hard. Look, when I went to school, and probably you too, we got 2 grades. We got a grade for our accomplishment and our aptitude, and we got a grade for our effort.
I got attitude. It was attitude with us.
Well,
it was 1 to 5, I remember.
Right. So all that stuff really matters. What is your attitude? What is your philosophy? Have you taken the time to think about your relationship with work, right? Like to really think about it. Have you made it the enemy? Have you suggested perhaps that it's the proximate cause of whatever unhappiness you have in your life? Most people have. So the idea of quietly quitting, I'm sure, is very appealing to a lot of people because they don't have to step up and do it publicly. You don't have to risk being ostracized or shamed, right? You just quietly fade away. And that's what I'm going to do now.
If you ever go to the comments on a Mike Rowe video where he talks about jobs, you'll find it's about 98% full of people just crapping on him. So let's read a few comments to find out why people are quietly quitting. The concept of quiet quitting reminds me of the old Soviet joke, "We pretend to work and they pretend to pay us." Quiet quitting speaks to a broken incentive system, both within the job and in the larger system we've managed to devolve into. If most of the motivating factors from life, the American dream more or less, have been twisted or pulled out of reasonable reach, then I can understand why people just give up on pushing to higher levels of achievement. Unfortunately, this creates 2 follow-on effects: a downward spiral in life that at many times in history could quickly lead to starvation, and a downward spiral in the world that puts any reward permanently out of reach for vast numbers of people. The older, reliable people that came on the job with good work ethics have been worked right into the ground. The ones that have always been the quiet quitters get everything they want handed to them, and you, the ethical worker, are expected to pick up the slack. I'm being forced to quit outright from a job in the medical field. Worked all through COVID-19, worked short-staffed, worked overtime not from the desire for extra pay, but to help out. Bottom line, if you go on a job with a good work ethic, all you're doing is guaranteeing you will be worked into the ground and thrown away without the pretense of caring. After 30 plus years busting my backside and going above and beyond at my job, I came to realize this. If you are a hard worker, the boss will keep piling work on you instead of a slacker. The boss knows the job will get done on time, with good results and no supervision. If he has to deal with a slacker, then the boss has to put effort in to make sure it's done right and on time. I just got tired of seeing slackers not being asked to do anything, or have anything expected of them because management is lazy. They get paid the same as I do, but I have to do twice the work. If one employee works hard and another employee hardly works, and they both get paid the same, then you can be the one that works hard and I'll play on my phone all day. If I work hard and show initiative only for the lazy buffoon to get the promotion, then I'm not working hard anymore. If I have to stay late so the boss can take all the credit and get a nice bonus, then I'm not working hard anymore. If I get yelled at for taking a bathroom break, then I'm not working hard anymore. If employees get laid off while management gets raises, then I'm not working hard anymore. There are a lot of reasons why people don't want to work anymore, and laziness isn't necessarily at the top of that list. Treat people right, pay them fairly, reward hard work, fire the deadbeats, quit micromanaging every aspect of their day, and maybe things will change. In short, start valuing hard work and people will start working hard. Doing what you're paid to do is not any kind of quitting, it's doing your job. Going above and beyond without compensation is not success or achievement. Giving 100% and never saying no, I grew up being told that and took it to heart. Applied that mentality to my first few jobs, and all it did was allow my employers to pile more work on me without paying more, and while the slackers did the bare minimum without getting so much as a peep. The minute I failed to do something during my shift because I've allowed so much to be piled on me, I'm the shitty employee and gaslit to step it up and do better, while most of my fellow employees barely do anything. After that, I learned to do just enough to stay off management's radar. Also learned taking a lead position is ultimately stupid. You're expected to do your work and then check and be responsible for the work of your coworkers for barely any extra pay. No one works harder than my husband, who owns his own business. But for those of us who work hard for others, be it in private or government jobs, have found those jobs to be exploitative and deeply unsatisfactory. We all quietly quit years ago and found we still got paid the same. After years of busting my hump and going above and beyond and finding that nobody cared, in fact, they resented me for stepping over toes, I stopped coming in early. I stopped putting in 120%. I left early, I called in sick, etc. And guess what? People at my job liked me more, and I got just as many raises and such as when I worked super hard. My husband, who owns his own business, gets an actual reward for his hard work. But I didn't while working for others. Just the opposite. So F it. We used to feel like we were working towards something. A home, family, a good life. That doesn't seem possible to many anymore. Why work hard if you will have nothing to show for it? Most places now take advantage of hard workers. It's now at the point where hard work is exploited, not rewarded. So do the bare minimum for the most return. I work at a grocery store, and me plus several others have stepped down to work easier positions. The people in charge would keep adding more and more work and then punish us when it became too much. It's not the person, it's the out-of-touch leaders making life hell for common employees. This is reality. This was my reality for a long time. COVID showed just how little our employers cared about us. Take my experience, for example. Our company announced it would go on furlough for 5 or 6 weeks when the pandemic had shut everything down, including the company that we sold parts to. So there was no money coming in to pay employees. So they said, we're going to have a furlough, and maybe 5-6 weeks you can come back, and maybe we might have to even extend the furlough a little bit. We're not sure. And so I was sent home. And before that, they had a meeting telling us to sign up for unemployment and how to do it. Now, the federal government was offering $300 additional dollars a week on top of what the state was paying. And so I did the math, and over 6 weeks I would have made almost $5,000 just by sitting at home. 1 week into my furlough, my company called me back and said that things were a little busier than they expected and that they wanted me to come back into work if I wanted to. And I said yes, because I was always trying to prove that I was a good employee willing to work and go the extra distance. But let's be honest, that was really stupid. That whole month-long period, I was punished for going back into work and taking a $2,500 pay cut for it. I should have stayed home.
But I still like my
I
paycheck.
actually really, hearing you talk, I actually relate to sports. One way not to lose is not to play.
Sure.
And if you're afraid to lose to the point where you don't play, you blame the refs, you quit early, you do things like that, or you don't engage at all. So I can go compete. I'm going to go on Wall Street. I'm going to wear that suit. I'm going to try to make it way up. But if I fail, I don't want to feel like a failure. So I'm not going to engage. Those people are obsessed. These capitalists are obsessed with winning and losing, making money. There's more to life than that.
Sure.
But that gives you a purpose, and to competing, it gives you a vigor. And if you approach it with the right way to test yourself, that takes effort and that takes risk. And the way not to have that is to say those people are terrible and misguided. I'm out. And the way to give them the experiment is to give them a 2-year break from working.
They are never fair in these hypotheticals. What if the people are terrible and misguided? What if the refs are to blame? What if the league is to blame? What if, when you score all the points, you don't get MVP, and the person who sat on the bench gets MVP every game? What if your pay never really changes, whether you score all the points or none at all? Well, then people will sit out the game if it doesn't matter, because that's the smart play in the retarded system that we now live in.
Pay them not to work, and then take care of their apartments. We have forgiveness.
Sure.
You don't have to pay. And guess who gets hurt by that? Everybody else and landlords who didn't get any rent for 2 years.
Well,
and he
sure.
can't kick them out.
Look,
and student loan payments that are not made.
You're reading my mind. We've just asked millions and millions and millions of people who have worked really, really hard from the moment they got out of high school, who have built businesses, who create jobs. We're asking those people to write the check for $1.7 trillion in outstanding student loans from people who went another way, who made another choice. You want to talk about forgiveness? Fine, I forgive you. But I'm not going to forget, and I'm certainly not going to pay it off.
You got to do the deal.
Look,
It took me 13 years to pay back my student loans with a deferment, which I had to go to the bank and say, listen, I couldn't afford $126 a month. So they say you have 18 months. So when I came back, it was $225. And I took loans out every year till I was 35. I was just thinking about this morning because I hear that Joe Biden's about to forgive everybody's loan.
I got 24 friends with big, fat car payments and truck payments who run construction sites. They need their Ford 350. They need the big Dodge. They have to have it. They bought it. They're paying it off. They're building your house. They're building our roads. Is anybody talking about paying off the debt of that truck?
Not that I know of. Let me look it up. Nope.
Nope, of course not. And by the way, nor should we.
What's funny is they're unironically complaining that busting their ass is not paying off, and it would have been smarter to be the slacker who didn't pay off their loans. They're literally making the point that they can't seem to understand. This is where you have to understand that America is a different country than the one that you grew up in. People who work hard are not rewarded anymore. People who buy trucks are the enemy of the state. Kulak types are the enemy. And so the system recalibrates itself to punish that type of behavior. If you work hard, you're a sucker. If you work less, you're rewarded. If you own a small business, you're the enemy. If you're a massive, faceless corporation, you're our friend. We live in opposite day, and the workplace is no different. Hearing these two talk is like the boomer who wonders why it's so hard for millennials to find a job these days. Back in my day, you would just walk up to the boss, shake his hand, and tell him, "I'm a hard worker, sir," and then you'll have the job. But this is referring to an America that does not exist anymore. One that valued hard work, which nobody does anymore, especially corporations. I think people are willing to work super hard, if the incentives are right.
But all you need to know about where the line is drawn is about what tools we value. People on dirty jobs, they don't quit quietly. When they quit, and they move on to the next thing, and they keep going. They don't do anything quietly. They do everything proudly, and they do it all the way up. Like Ernest Hemingway said, there's only one way to live, all the way up. Doing it quietly, doing something, the more important a thing is, the more proudly you ought to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, quitting quietly is just another way of saying whatever it is I've been doing doesn't matter.
It's people saying whatever I've been doing doesn't matter in the eyes of the people who pay me. We do not go to work for fun. We don't go to make friends. The vast majority of us go because we have to live, and that's not free, and so we need to work a job. And that job must provide money for the work that we are hired to do. And if job after job, you do exactly what Mike Rowe says, and you still find yourself getting screwed, then it is not on you, it's the system that you're working in. As I always say, all the disagreements I have with people come from how much trust we both have in the system. Mike Rowe has a tremendous trust in the system, that it does care about people, that it rewards hard work, and that if people are quitting, it must be because they're lazy. Whereas I have no trust in the system, and I understand that it does none of the things that Mike Rowe promises that it does. And just by looking at the comments, I think that most people understand that too. Anyways, that's all the time I have for today. This video doesn't really go anywhere else. They talk about Ernest Hemingway and Jerry Seinfeld as models of success, which is not only a non sequitur, but not helpful either. If you enjoyed this video and type of content that I'm making, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.